Hello, viewer, and welcome to Spotlight here on Hope TV, where you look and live. And we always do our very best here on Spotlight to bring to you persons who are changing, transforming the community in the direction of light. And one of the ways in which our community is transformed is through content, is through knowledge, new knowledge. And every time you're sharing knowledge, it's transforming a particular person or a situation. And authoring books, publishing books is a big area, because in that area of books, we get lots of information passed on. And on this edition of Spotlight, we'll be talking about exactly that, about authorship and about writing, and specifically the role of writing in the Christian space, and knowing how writing can be able to transform the community powerfully. And we are so honored on this edition of Spotlight to have persons who are totally in that area. You know, they are authors. That's one, which is a big thing, right? Being an author is a big thing. And also they are also part of an association, which is the Kenya Faith Writers Network. Kenya's Faith Writers Network. Just in case you're wondering, I'm a Christian, I want to write. Is there a supportive body? Yes, there is. The Kenya Faith Writers Network. They are leaders there. And so, viewer, let us welcome Rose Kainda, who is actually the founder of Virtue Plus. That's an institution that you run, and also the chairperson also of the Kenya Faith Writers Network. Welcome.
Thank you, sir. Thank you. Yeah. Glad to be here this evening.
Welcome back. You've been here before.
Yes, asante sana.
And if you see yourself back, just know that you did a good job the last time, you know.
Awesome. We thank you.
Yeah, so yes. And I thank you for coming along with the deputy board chair, yes, right, of the Kenya Faith Writers Network. That is Gilbert Angana.
Yes.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
And you are an author as well.
Yes, at least you are one of the few people who pronounce my name well.
Maybe I should write more, you know. And you are also the founder of Accent Leadership Group.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Welcome.
Yeah.
To Spotlight. Now, just a little bit about a reminder about the Kenya Faith Writers Network. Just tell us about what you do there.
Awesome. It's very interesting to be here to talk about Kenya Faith Writers Network, because that's one of the things and the spaces that has really transformed my life in terms of writing. So Kenya Faith Writers Network is an association of faith writers, just as the name depicts. Faith writers because we are believers. We are people who have been transformed through the Word of God. And besides that, we are authors. So what we do then is that we've come together. First of all, we came together in 2018. Kenya Faith Writers Network was founded in 2018, around June, actually in June to be precise, by three ladies. I'm a co-founder, and we were together with my predecessor chairperson, Ms. Polly Mugo, and another lady called Jane Arell. So we felt that there is need for us to get Christian literature, authentic Christian literature, to actually go out there for the sake of transforming mindsets. In fact, our vision is transforming Kenya through the gift of writing. So what we do basically is now to bring Christian authors together, empower them through training, but at the same time, celebrate their writing. And how we celebrate their writing is by launching books, having book readings, which then create not just publicity, but we believe that when the audience gets the pieces, you know, these transformational tools we call books, then they are transformed, and that transformation starts with that individual. And it is now, taken up in the community.
Yeah. Right. Yeah. Now, Gilbert, you can tell us, being also a leader in the Kenya Faith Writers Network, what are some of the transformational things that you've seen this network do?
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. So I think as Rose has talked about, the critical issue for us is transforming Kenya through the gift of writing. And pulling in together writers first is actually just pulling in a body of Christian resource from different experiences and lives of people. So there are authors who talk about marriage. There are authors who talk about children. There are authors who talk about leadership. There are authors who talk about different genes. Different genre based on the different societal areas. So that already is a transformation on its own, because if you are writing based either on your individual experience or some gained knowledge in a specific area, and people out there are able to pick out those books and read, then there is some aspect of wisdom and understanding through the gift of writing. Okay. But also number two is I joined KFWN in 2019. I used to just do my own freelance writing on blogs and so on. But then in 2019, I actually was on a mission to write a book. So then just having a community of fellow writers and challenging one another to walk that journey then helped me actually to release my first book in 2019, which is also one of the things that, there are many people out here who would want to write a book, but they don't know how. So when you are engaged now with a community of Christian writers and they challenge one another, there are some deadlines, there's some time when you come up in the morning and write. So it's already a transformational journey, especially for young writers or upcoming writers who want to really focus on writing a book fully.
All right.
But also besides that, there are areas that we also engage in terms of supporting the community. I think one of the things that we were challenging ourselves this time around is to see how we can now move into high schools, into colleges, into schools, to be able now to start nurturing those gifts of writing from that age. I started writing when I was in primary school, but I used to write poems. So there are many children out there in primary schools, in high school, who are possibly doing something. Maybe they're writing short stories, they're writing poems. So that's part of the nurturing, that if we're able to start building up from and impacting Christian values from that age, then you find that they'll come up and start writing Christian materials. Otherwise, then it will be a situation where, yes, they have this gift of writing, it was not nurtured well, so they come out and write materials that are not necessarily building the Christian values out here. So those are some of the transformation areas that we have seen, and really also we are focusing on moving into the future.
I like the part of the thinking that you want to go out and nurture the writing gifts at a tender age, because that's one of the places that, as a culture, sometimes we leave these gifts to come out at a much later stage, or we leave that gifting to other people, like certain class of people, but not everyone, right? So I think that's a really good thing. I want us to just know also, Rose, and also Gilbert, what books you've written yourselves.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's a good question and an exciting one. So I happen to have two titles here.
Okay.
But in total, I've written 5 books.
Okay. That's a lot.
Yeah. My first book is on parenting, and it actually focuses majorly on the single parent, because I am a single parent, and I am happy. I'm contented, because there is a place for that in the society. But now having to bring out that to other parents, single parents, who may feel that, whoops, this is, a place that is a bit not so nice. So that was my first book. I wrote that book in 2012. My second book is on business, and it's called Developing Your Own Business Success Culture. Again, it is coming from my side of being a business trainer, as well as a mentor. Actually, those 2 books, I am editing them, right? Not editing, I'm revising them now because, of course, of the trends. Then in 2019, I did my third title, which is co-authored with a friend of mine, Miss Jackie. And in 2020, when COVID struck, I did these 2 titles. The first one was The Power of Reflections, Reaching into the Core. This is really one of the books that I believe God has just used me to bring out to change lives. Not to say that the others are not changing, but it is so rich because it helps somebody to reach deep into their core, particularly in our walk of faith. It addresses a number of issues in terms of difficulties that you change as that you encounter as a believer. But then after this book, then this was born, The Full Armor of God. This picks directly from the book of Ephesians, chapter 6. And when I was writing this book, the Lord revealed to me that it is literally the one that gives a believer victory. Because then when you are covered, when you are protected, when you are clothed with the full armor, it means that you are holistically, all round protected. So those are the 5 books that I've done.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'm writing 3 titles right now.
Wow. It's not 5 and counting, right? Yeah, Gilbert.
Yeah. So I've written 4 books.
4?
Yes.
Okay.
My first book is called Breakout. It's a personal story of my encounter with God. I got born again immediately after campus in 2008. Then I went into the wilderness. So now
that's a parable. I'm sure a lot happened.
Yes.
Wilderness means a lot of things. Anyway, yeah.
So then that book really gives a personal story around how I broke out and really came back to Christ and understanding Him and now focused on Him fully. So it has a lot of teachings there around my personal journey, my cries, my happiness, and so on through various things that I've gone through. Then my second book is Speed, because after Breakout, then a number of people, when they read that book, they were asking me further question. Okay, so you've given us your story, so but you didn't tell us how. What were you doing every day to really move out of this? We resonate with your story, but I don't know how to do it. I don't know how to break out.
Which is a very important question.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes.
Yeah.
So then that prompted me then to write a follow-up book that is called Speed. So Speed is an acronym for studying the word every day, praying, exemplifying God's nature every day, envisioning and declaring the word every. So it's a daily routine.
Okay, is that trademarked or can one use it? Anyway, yeah.
Yeah, so then that marked now the routine that I started now plugging into my daily life. So I had a session for studying the word every day before, in the morning and in the evening, praying every day in different scenarios now intentionally, waking up in the morning and really envisioning and say, God, this is where I want to be, and this is where I'm praying that you take me. Exemplifying God through your daily things, the way you engage and so on, and then declaring God's word every day. So that then helped in terms of plugging the gap for breakout. Then, of course, from a personal perspective, that I feel that God is calling me into the marketplace ministry, especially from a leadership perspective. I used to be in the corporate space for almost 15 years. To some levels of leadership. So I saw the gaps that were in between. So then, from a personal perspective, I felt God is calling me now into that space of speaking about leadership, talking about some leadership values that are based on Christian values. So I released a book called Leadership Purpose, because there's a big challenge in terms of leaders understanding what is my purpose for this season that I'm in this leadership space. So people just operate, but they are not clear in terms of what is it that what is the specific purpose for my leadership now. So that's why you find that leaders are hurting their team more and so on. So the Leadership Purpose Handbook is basically to help leaders really craft and understand their leadership purpose for that season. Then this year I released now a book also on leadership.
I released.
Yes. So this year I also released a book called Engaged and Productive. So this talks about 5 mind shifts that leaders can be able to build so that they can be able to inculcate to build highly productive teams.
Okay.
So it's also based on values that are more Christian values, because I talk about from authority to influence, and influence about adding value to people every day, and what do you need to do to add value to people every day. I talk about from communicating to connecting, because as leaders we like communicating, top-down message, do this, but some of the things are not being done to the excellence because we're not connecting with the teams. I talk about from inferiority to cheerleading, because every leader has an aspect of inferiority complex. But then how you manifest it to your team is critical. So instead of really manifesting it in a negative way, why don't you become a cheerleader to your team?
Okay.
Why don't you get the 1% and expound it to 99% where you're lying? I talk about ego to appreciative. We all have ego.
Yeah.
How do you then manifest your ego?
So a lot of things there
Yes.
are very helpful. I like
Yes.
the word mind shift.
Yes, true.
And I was talking about mind shift.
Yeah.
A very important question that our viewers would want to know is, 5 books
Yes.
and 3 in the works, right?
Yeah.
Then 4 books.
Yeah.
Some very technical, very self-disclosing. Have you made money about this? Are you now a wealthy person? Like, out of this 5 and now 8 books rose, you must be wealthy now. Like, or an author. You know, when you hear an author, you think, wealthy, right?
Yes, yes. I'm not wealthy financially as a result of the books that I've sold.
Don't put quote unquote.
Let me-
Because the perception is always
Yes.
that
Yes.
you are an author. You've written a book. You must be. Let's not put quotes. Let's just.
Yeah, let me
Yes,
put it this way. One of the greatest benefits of writing, from my perspective, is the fact that you called it mindset. That's exactly my persuasion, our persuasion as a Virtue Plus, as well as a Kenya Faith Writers Network. The transformation of mindsets, the worldviews, the beliefs that we hold. Now, if, for example, in this book, The Full Armor of God, if you pick it today and you read and your worldview is changed in terms of who you are as a believer, for me, that is a gain.
Okay.
Now, I'm not saying that we don't write for money. No. We write, I believe that when the Lord gives us a gift, because this is a gift, we serve using that gift, and then the money will follow. I can tell you for sure I have made a number of sales through these 2 books, but probably not what you'd call, a lot of money. But I'm grateful that, yes, there is income that is coming probably on a daily basis through the sales of books. But my greatest desire is that a life is changed.
Okay.
A life is transformed.
All right.
Yes.
Gilbert, money is important, especially in our times today. People are looking for things they can do to make money.
Yes.
Would you say that writing is one of the areas that people can actually make money?
Yeah, definitely. I think what Rose is saying in a nutshell is that it's book writing and that when you write books is actually a source of passive income, because there are many sources of generating income, and you can actually make a lot of money through books if you are clear in terms of a number of structure. And I think it's one of the things that we'll talk about possibly at some point, because there is the bit around writing a book, but there is a bit around from your book now creating an ecosystem around it.
It's a big word. It's like mind shift.
Yes.
Ecosystem.
Yes. Like you see now, this book is about, and it talks about the 5 mind shifts that I've talked about. But then there's a program that I've developed out of it. It's a 5 weeks program that then, if I engage organization, that I'm teaching them about how to build highly productive teams.
Okay.
There are also platforms around speaking engagements to speak around your book on these and these areas. So there are those ones that will be paid. There are those ones that will be maybe just you're trying to use it as a marketing platform. So through that, and when you are intentional around creating an ecosystem around your book, then you will find that then your book is actually selling.
Okay.
Even without much effort, because there are also channels. There are now online online shops that you can partner with. As you drive the marketing aspect, and some of the online shops actually help you in terms of packaging the marketing material and so on. And some of the publishers now, like Rose here, helps you in terms of packaging marketing materials.
Okay.
Then you can actually be able to build, to make money out of it consistently as passive income.
You know, so I mean, so there are two sides to it, right?
Yes.
There is the transformative side, passing knowledge, but there's also you make money out of it, which is quite. Those are important aspects.
Yeah.
Then, when you hear an author, Rose, you think somebody who is lofty. You think somebody who is out there. Wow, so and so has written a book. And is anyone a writer? Can anyone be a writer, or is writing about something, a skill one can learn? Is it inborn? Is it? I mean, how can you explain how one becomes an author?
Okay. Writing is not a skill it's not even a talent that one is born with. But I can, from my experience and probably the knowledge that I've acquired over the years, anyone can write. And I'll explain what I mean by that. It doesn't mean that anyone can actually pick a pen and write their story. It means that anyone can have their story written and read by other people. Now, personally, I write my stories, but I've also written stories for other people. So that means that somebody else who doesn't have the time or even the skill to write can approach somebody else to write on their behalf.
Okay.
Now, let me also say that writing comes with actually a very specific motivation. For me, there are things that I feel that God has put in my heart. And this I have experienced through many other authors that I have been able to engage with. When the Lord really, takes you through a certain path, and I know here I'm talking from a Christian perspective, there are others who have written, from a secular perspective. But from a Christian perspective, there is a place that God takes you and he gives you such a confirmation, such an insight within you. You know and you know and you know that there is this thing within you, that you want to share it out there for the sake of somebody else. So in very few words, yes, anyone can write. Do you have a message? Because writing, it's not for the sake of just writing. No, what message are you passing across? Are there specific values, for example, that you want to pass to maybe the youth or the married couples or even the church in general? What exactly are you passing out?
Okay.
I mean, just to take this further, somewhere in the Bible, we see John being told, right, So there is a place for hearing God, particularly as a believer, for hearing God in us. When you want to write, what are you writing?
Okay.
And who are you writing to? So if these two are not clear, then you don't have a message.
And we've had instances whereby somebody has a message, right? But they say they don't know how to write, right?
Yeah.
And so they sometimes are stranded.
Yes.
Because you feel, I really have a message.
Yes.
But when it comes to the time, the skill, I don't know.
Yes.
No, we'll talk about that.
Okay.
Gilbert, we'll come back to that.
Okay.
Because that's an important question that the viewer want to know.
Yes.
Viewer, we are talking about writing and talking about the Christian transforming the community through writing. And the question is, I mean, if I have a message and I don't know how to write, then how does that happen? Or if am I an inborn writer, or is it something that I learn? Interesting things here. And you want to stay here on Spotlight. We're taking a short break. We'll be right back.
This week on Testify.
This life is enjoyable. It's at that time, it was enjoyable. It was fun.
It was fun.
It was fun.
Yeah.
But little did I know that my mom was crying.
Oh.
Yeah, my mom was crying every day. And I can tell you, for so many days I came home and I heard her praying and telling God, God, may you give me one. Give me one, because 4 of my brothers were out drinking.
Wow.
Only on Hope TV. Look and live.
Viewer, welcome back. We are talking about writing and how that transforms the community, especially about faith writing, Christian writing. And we are talking to Rose Kainda and also Gilbert Angana, who are authors and also leaders in the Kenya Faith Writers Network. Lots of wisdom, especially when you're asking the questions of how do I engage and is this a space I can get into, and getting a lot of insights, very supportive insights. And just before we went for the break, Gilbert, we were just asking, a very important question about, I have a message, but I say I don't have the skills.
Yeah.
So, and we hear things about like ghost writers and things like that.
Yes.
Pseudonym writers, and I mean, how does that go?
Okay, so one of the things that I'll say is that everyone has an experience to share. So that's the first. So if you are to look about, if you are to say that, can everyone write a book? Ideally, everyone can write a book, because we all have experiences that we've gone through, whether good or bad or somewhere, that we can share with people and somebody out there will relate with. So whether you have the time or the energy or the focus to write, I think that's where Rose was talking about, is if you want to really, really share your story out, if there's a message that you feel that you have and you need to pass out, then there are various ways that you can be able to do that. One is you can actually just be talking about recording yourself when you feel like you have the inspiration to talk about something. So you record yourself and maybe send it to someone who can be able then to now put that recording into writing and put some creativity around it and so on. Or you can actually be having an engagement with someone who can be able to help in terms of scribbling and putting your content into some writing form. So there is no excuse in terms of saying that I can't really release an article or I can't really release a book as a person. I don't think that I'm somebody who can write a book and so on. I think there are platforms that everyone, if they're able to utilize them, they can release a book out. So there are those ones who are gifted in terms of, and the passion in terms of writing, those ones who have a story, but they know that either because of time, because of their commitment and so on, they can't write. So there are other channels to use in releasing your book out.
Okay. Now, when we are at that, you've talked about articles.
Yes.
And I come to you, Rose, because these days, social media, I mean, people are writing all the time.
Yeah.
I mean, you go to Facebook, people are writing, Instagram, people are writing, Twitter, people are writing, small little things, and they're very consistent on that. So are those writers also? Can you say I'm an author on Twitter? I'm an author on Facebook. I'm an author, in this way.
No, you cannot say
Oh,
I'm an
that's a
author.
big no.
Yes. And this, I'll tell you why I'm saying no. Until, for example, you are a published author, like in terms of books, now we can't kind of refer to you as a published author, but you are actually a writer. You write on Facebook, as you put it very well. You write on, you have your own blog, or even you write for other organizations. But then the beauty of that is actually that could be your starting point to authorship. I know of many friends who have collated their articles and ultimately have refined them into books.
Okay.
So there is always a starting point. But then we graduate into different levels. So we don't despise, and nobody should feel like, oh my goodness, when will I become an author or a published author? Start where you are at. Have you written an article? Do you have a blog that you have consistently, as very well put it, consistently written about, you know, various topics. Some of them are actually consistent in terms of it's a thread, you know. So it is very easy to go and collect that material and publish your book.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
You know, quite a bit about writing, and you've just busted somebody's bubble because they say, "Oh, I'm a writer." You know, I may not be published, but I'm an author. You know, but
right.
you've just given us what it takes now to be a published. There's a writer and a published
author.
writer or
Yeah.
author.
Yeah.
Quite much about writing. Let's talk about reading, because reading is very important. They are related. You know. And I'd want you, Gilbert, to give us just a description from your experience about us as Kenyans.
Yeah.
Right? Are we reading? Can you describe us as readers and readers of published authors? Because I've just learned that if you're reading other writings, maybe you're not quite a reader yet.
Yes.
But how would you describe the reading culture in Kenya?
I think for me, Fran, this is just from a personal experience perspective. I think as a country, as a people, we have really transformed our reading culture. I know traditionally there was this saying that was saying, if you want to hide something from an African, hide it in the book. But I think from my belief is that is not there anymore, or is not there significantly. And there's a lot of development of reading culture that has taken up in a lot of spaces in our country over the years, which is a good thing. Because today, I mean, you meet even some of the CEOs and so on, they'll tell you they're reading. You meet some of the children in school, I mean, they read somehow, storybook and so on. And this is actually something good because that's how then they develop it. So I think it's just more on now emphasizing it as many of us as like now Kenya Faith Writers Network really championing the mentorship agenda in schools and various other channels where we can develop that culture. It can help the country a lot in terms of building it to a sustainable level. But generally, I think there's been a big improvement in our reading culture, which is a plus for us as a country.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think that's really good news.
Yeah.
You know, that we no longer have to we've moved. We are reading more.
Yeah.
You know. And then Rose, what are we reading? Are we reading Kenyan writers more? Are we still reading mostly like in the faith area? We have lots of authors from the West, and their books pretty popular here. So are we reading more of that, the foreign books, or are we also equally reading the local authors from your experience?
Yeah, that's a very important question for this discussion. I think that is where really Kenya Faith Writers come in, because again, from my experience and from the experience of the Kenya Faith Writers Network, I believe that there is a lot of Western content in our spaces. And we are coming up as Kenyan authors, Kenyan Christian authors, to create one relevant content. What do I mean? Content that actually we can be able to relate with. Relevant content in terms of a Kenyan parent can be able to read another parent's experience and they identify with it. And so we want to fill our spaces with Kenyan content. We are grateful for the Western content that we have available for us because, of course, again, the world is really, really dynamic. We don't want to be an island. But at the same time, we are saying, let's be real. Let's start home even before we go out there. But I think what had happened in the past is that we started out there and now we are zeroing in the country. Yes, yes, yeah.
Okay, I think that's very helpful. The viewer is asking, especially viewers who have not written books, but they feel like they want to understand this area more. What would you say is the process? I'm a fresh person. I have a message. I feel I can write it down. And so what's the process all the way? Just in a simple way, break it down for the viewer.
Okay, so I'll just really break it down briefly, then I'm sure Rose that's her space in terms of publishing, then she can
Yeah,
tell the
she can
nitty-gritty.
add, yeah.
But also, of course, for me, I'm talking about it from an author journey perspective. Once you have your message, of course, end to end, then that then becomes your manuscript. Then your manuscript has to undergo several steps. One is for you to start thinking through with your designer, and sometimes the designer is your publisher also, in terms of the cover content, the cover page. Like you see now, thinking through why this and how you can explain in terms of your cover page is important, because your cover page also translates into somehow briefly describe what your book is all about. Then also now issues around editing, issues around putting some outline in terms of your book, because your manuscript is just a flow of your information and your message. But then now putting it in a nice way that people can read and enjoy the reading and looks nice to your eyes. So that's the whole outline. There's an editing aspect that is very critical, and that's where a lot of our local authors are actually going wrong, because they do self-editing. You cannot edit a book that you've written yourself, because then there will be mistakes that you won't see. So it's important to really get the services of an editor who will be able to walk you through it and give it time, so that then you engage and so on.
Okay.
Then there is now the publishing aspect after. So the publishing aspect now, there are two ways you can. If you're okay in terms of doing self-publishing means you identify a publisher and you agree on that. Once they print and publish your book, they give it to you the way you've organized and agreed with them. But then there's also now there are services of a publisher. A publisher that now walks you through even some journey around marketing and stuff. So that's where Rose comes in and gives a full end-to-end solution, from the beginning to the end, so that then it can become more professional. Especially now if you're a regular writer and you want to scale up your writing, your authorship, in terms of also making good money as we move along.
Especially the good money part.
Yes.
So
Yes.
maybe you can say more about this process of
Okay, yes. I'm laughing because, of course, he's bringing in the aspect of good money.
that's what the
which is
the
very
viewers are
important.
happy to
Yes,
hear, that there's money.
Absolutely.
There's money here, yeah.
Yes, so publishing is a process. And I know that in the last couple of years, this has been misunderstood, because we have printers, we have editors, and an editor will present himself or herself as a publisher. A printer will present themselves as a publisher. Or even a ghostwriter will present themselves as a publisher. But really, publishing is a process. And it actually starts with the author, because the author is the one who puts together the manuscript. Now, when, as a publisher, you get the manuscript, you enter into an agreement. And there are several layers of agreements within the publishing process. One is what we call the non-disclosure agreement. What does that mean? As a publisher, you are letting the author know that this content is secure in our hands, because what has happened in the past without that, and even a couple of people who are not value-based, even when they have that agreement, they have taken others' content and crafted it to be their own.
They've stolen.
You've stolen. Yeah. Actually, it's intellectual stealing, intellectual theft. So, and that has tainted the publishing industry for those who are value-based. So, after the NDA, then, of course, now the publisher reviews the manuscript. When you're reviewing, first of all, to ensure that it's in line with your, for example, value system. Because, like for us as Virtue Plus publishers, we publish only Christian content. So if anyone approaches us and their writing is not anchored in the Bible, we will not be able to publish that. Yes, we had already signed an NDA, but we'll be able to tell you, sorry, we cannot publish this. So after we have accepted the manuscript, then we've gone through, we've signed the NDA, we review, and then if it's okay for us, if it agrees with our culture, we actually go ahead now and enter the editorial process. Now, we have many, many different kinds of editing. Of course, there is what we call line editing. We have the normal grammatical errors and all that. what my brother was talking about, we're looking into the coherent, you know, the flow of the message that is being passed along. But we are also looking at the contextual, the message, you know, because my experience with many of the manuscripts that we have had is that you realize that somebody has a message in the last chapter, and this message is actually supposed to be in chapter 2. So you want to pick that message and bring it to chapter 2. So that is now the contextual kind of editing. And of course, all these, as we get to every stage, we are liaising. We are liaising with the author. We are telling them this is where we are at. So briefly, our editorial process takes between 3 and 5 rounds.
Okay.
By the time we are saying that your manuscript goes into the next stage, we have looked at it from page 1 to the last, between 3 and 5 times, and not just by one editor. Average 3 editors, because again, he talked about a very important aspect. At Virtue Plus, we call it external eyes, because many times, you will not see your own little mistakes. The comma, sometimes you will see a comma and you think it's a full stop. Or in your mind, you think that is a full stop and it is a comma, so you leave it there until Gilbert picks that manuscript. So it is now during the completion of the editing stage that now we can start also designing the cover.
Okay.
So we design the cover, but of course, after the editorial process, you are laying out the book, how it's going to look like. You know, we have different layout processes that we look at, and even, what are they called? I can't even remember. There is what we call the Turabian approach. There is what we call the APA approach. There is the Chicago approach. We use all that in terms of layout of the book.
Yeah. And so it sounds like it's quite a technical area.
It is.
And Gilbert, you are an author. Sounds like a very expensive process because there's somebody, oh, I want to write, but I'm hearing printing, I'm hearing marketing, I'm hearing designing, I'm hearing multiple 3-layer editing, you know, all these things.
Yeah.
Is it an expensive process?
So I'll say yes and no, depending on now the level at which, remember you talked about releasing a book out and then creating an ecosystem around your book. So releasing a book out is not that expensive, especially now when you get into such associations like Kenya Faith Writers Network, where you find that in the process around it, you remove your editing costs because then you come in, we help you in terms of editing for free and possibly a few things around layout, giving you some consultancy basis around that for actually free. But if you do it alone, then definitely there'll be a cost for editors and so on.
Yeah.
So if you join such authors association, especially from a Christian circle perspective, then you find that you are able to cut down a number of costs.
Okay.
But also, if you want to release not just a book, but a whole system around it, then definitely there's some input around costs that will be there.
You've mentioned ecosystem
Yes.
quite a bit. Just briefly again, tell us about the ecosystem around your book.
So this book, for example, so there's the book aspect. So you can pick the book and read. There's an assessment that is called Engage and Productive. So an assessment for leaders. So if you want to understand where are you in terms of this aspect of building highly engaged teams. So you do the assessment, you find out your areas of weakness, your areas of strength, and then work on it. Then there's a program aspect of it. So there's a 5 weeks program that I train organizations and their leaders and so on.
That's the ecosystem.
Yes.
Okay.
And there could be many other plugins that you can actually do to ensure that, so that's, if you're looking at it now, beyond just a book to now also value add, because the more value add you have, the more financial aspect that you will also...
So
yes.
Value add.
Yes.
I think that's a great insight.
Yes.
So much to ask, but I believe that this is really helpful for all of us because Rose, I would want you to tell us about the launch that's coming up.
Yeah. Okay, awesome. So, so as Kenya Faith Writers Network, one of the greatest, or really what we call like our mainstream activity of every year is the annual joint launch. And this is a process that begins at the beginning of every year, where members who are able and willing to write within the year or to complete writing engagements that they had started the previous year go through the process of writing, so that by the end of the year, we are launching the books. And we do it jointly. So this year, we have our launch on the 3rd of December. We are very excited. We'll be actually launching 10 books written by 7 authors. In fact, I have a couple of some of these books here. Yes. So like we have different areas of writing. We have like, for example, this one is a leadership book. This is a relationship book. It talks about hearing God, marrying well, and key premarital counseling topics. And of course, we are also looking at teaching practice. And these are among the 10 books that we are going to be launching. And the launch is going to be between 2 p.m. and 6 p.m. on the 3rd of December. We're just going to have it at the Lenana Mount Hotel, right along Rough Bunch Road. And we would want really to open spaces to every Christian author.
Okay.
In the past, it has been an event for Kenya Faith Writers Network. But this time round, we are opening it up to Christian authors so that they can also come and showcase their work. It's very, very open, and it's friendly. For a table, it's just 3,000 shillings.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yes.
Great. Lots of helpful information. And we are very, very grateful, Gilbert, for being on Spotlight today.
Thank you very
Thank you also, Rose, for your insightful talk here on Spotlight. And I'm sure viewers have really benefited. You've stirred up some people who could have just been thinking, what should I do? But finally would want to ask you, and I want to speak you to speak that camera right there, how does one join the Kenya Faith Writers Network?
Okay. So to join Kenya Faith Writers Network, we just want to see your writing piece. It doesn't have to be published, but probably you have written an article. Maybe you have even been writing on the Facebook walls or even on LinkedIn. So you just send us your work, and you can send us through Kenya Faith Writers Network at kenyafaithwriters@gmail.com, or reach out to any one of us. In fact, if you go to Facebook, you will see our name there, Kenya Faith Writers Network, and you just get to interact with us, and we will be able to respond to you.
All right.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah.
Thank you so much.
Thank you very much.
And keep writing.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Because in writing, what happens is that the authors are expressing their generosity by sharing insights with the world. And as you interact with those insights, especially faith insights, Bible-based insights, value-based insights, then you are transformed. And as you go into the world, you become a transformer also, because an author somewhere was generous with their insights. This has been Spotlight. Thank you for watching.